in listen-only mode.
Good morning and welcome to why use
Why?
Map 3D.
What is map? Why map?
This is the always entertaining Stan Henney and Warren Geisler with you today, and we're looking forward to this. We always have fun with these webinars, so please don't take too much offense if we're a little lighthearted, but at the same time, hopefully you'll get some really good stuff out of this. And who are we today? Yes, there we go.
There we go. Do you recognize that one?
I do.
I searched for a while to find that one. Let's see if you get the reference.
Beer is for closers, Warren.
Always be drinking beer in closing.
All right, so this will be a fun webinar. MAP is one of the little, at many times, many of you probably know what it is and use it, and hopefully you'll get some good things out of this today. But MAP is one of the little-known secrets in the Autodesk world to some degree.
It's a hidden gem.
It really is, and I would tell anybody out there, if you're considering buying a seat of AutoCAD, buy a seat of MAP instead, just because even if you're not in the mapping world, there's a lot that you can do with it that's kind of tucked away that people don't know about.
Yeah, so I call it the cool AutoCAD or the super AutoCAD.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of things that Stan mentioned that it can bring to the table for everybody. Even if you're using MAP, you may not know some of the things that it can do. And then for all of you who have Civil 3D, there's a lot of really cool tools and things in there that I definitely want to show you. So to start with, of course, all of our housekeeping stuff. So let me pull up the housekeeping slide for those of you who may not or may be familiar with this.
Most of you have been on a go-to meeting by now, so you know how to, if you're on the phone, hit the telephone button. If you're on the mic and speakers, hit the mic and speakers button. If I'm saying this and you can't hear it, then it really doesn't mean anything to you anyway.
Speaking of which,
you can move the console out of the way by hitting the orange and white arrow there. And if everybody would hit the raise your hand button if you can hear us, just so we can make sure that the sound's coming through halfway decently.
Looks like all the hands are raised and everybody's applauding.
Now, we've got a lot of people on this webinar, and thank you very much for all joining us. We do say that if you have questions, please type them into the question box, and we will get them answered as close to in context as possible, if possible.
If they're in context.
When we have this many people, we get sometimes more questions than we can handle and still make it through the webinar, so we'll do our best.
And we've got a lot of information. I've got a lot of information to show you all, a lot of cool things to show you all. It's going to go very, very quick. Again, this isn't really a training session, but mostly just to show you some of the things that these tool sets can do. Like Stan said, we'll try to answer questions. If we can't answer questions, we will have the information and the questions afterwards. And Michael just asked a very good question. And yes, and I'm glad you did ask that question. This webinar is being recorded.
We screw them up every once in a while, but most of the time we get them recorded and usually have them posted on our YouTube page and on our website under the archives area within usually a week or so. So yes, it will be on there.
Yep. So to start with, just to find out, because we've got a lot of people in here and some more are going to be joining us on the way, I believe. So just to find out the tools that you have, as I mentioned, AutoCAD Map's got some great tool sets even for the people who are using plain AutoCAD. And as Stan just said, and I really do believe this, and it's not just a sales pitch, I've been using AutoCAD Map since before it was even AutoCAD Map, since it was ADE, a series of tools that were added onto AutoCAD a long, long time ago. I've always believed that if you're just using plain AutoCAD or AutoCAD LT, this is a tool that you should really take a look at. So to that extent, let's find out what everybody's using. So please answer some questions. First question, what application do you use on a daily basis? And we're going to give you all a few minutes to answer this.
That's pretty good. A lot of
80%, 88%, 90%.
That's about as good as it's going to get.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and close it in a few seconds here. Last chance, and I'm closing the poll. Okay, the poll is closed. Let me share with you what's going on, and this is pretty cool. Good to know. at least everybody's using one of the applications that matter. Something else doesn't really help. But I had to throw that out there. So some good news for all of you who are using Civil 3D. You have map inside your program. Hopefully you know this. It's just a different workspace that you can get to. Also, if you're using one of the suites, especially one of these later suites, you've got a completely separate install. Now with 2014 and 2015, that's 60-some-odd% of you who are using Civil 3D. I really do recommend that when you want to use the map tools, you jump outside of Civil 3D, close the application, launch the map application, and use the tools. The reason for that is that some of the tools inside of AutoCAD Map don't really function well or at all inside of Civil 3D. They've been either disabled or their functionality has been crippled a little bit because they conflict with some of the Civil 3D tools. If you only have Civil 3D and you don't have one of the suites, then there you go. All you can do is switch your workspaces and use Map. For those of you using Map, cool, I'm glad to hear that. And then for the 13% of you who are using AutoCAD or AutoCAD LT, take a look at some of the things that you can do that I'm going to be showing you. And I always hear the thing, I don't use GIS, I don't use any of that. It doesn't matter. You're going to see some really cool things that you can use on a daily basis. Okay, so I'm going to hide that one. Now another important question that we always need to know, especially when I'm playing around here, because I'm going to be showing off AutoCAD Map 2015. But what version are you on? What version is everybody using? Are you daring? Are you cutting edge? Are you using AutoCAD Map 2015? Are you using 2014, an earlier version? What are you using? And while everybody's filling out the poll, I will say that, yes, 2015 is the latest version. For those of you who are using 2015, please, for all the love of the world, please keep up with your service packs. There are, I believe, there's a third service pack, I believe, that just got released. 2015 did have some issues with the release, mostly because they changed the graphics engine, and Autodesk is working furiously on patching some of the issues. So please keep up with your service packs. Also, please keep up with your video graphics drivers. Get the latest video graphics driver, and a lot of the problems that people are experiencing will go away. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll now so we can see what everybody's using, which is really cool to know. A lot of people are on 2015, which I'm going to be showing. Those of you on earlier versions, don't panic. Everything I'm showing you will be able to do. I'm not showing anything brand new or really exciting just for 2015, but good to know. Most of the people are on 2014, 2015.
With that said, Warren, I do want to, and I know it's a tiresome message to many of you now at this point.
We've got to keep this message
hammering home, and that is after February 1st, or essentially January 31st of 2015, so about 3 months from now, Autodesk will no longer upgrade older versions of the software. So like 2012, 2011, whatever, won't be able to upgrade it. You want to get current, you'll have to buy a whole new version. Sorry, that's not our message. We're just the messenger, no shooting at us.
Don't shoot the messenger,
but
definitely
make sure that if you
start
budgeting, call us. Let's get you upgraded before this happens. It doesn't mean your software will go away. It's just going to be an inconvenient amount of money when you do want to get current.
That's right.
The other thing that's very important is try and stay current. Keep your subscription up to date. That's the only way you'll be able to stay current in the future if that's important to you. That doesn't mean that you
have to load the latest version, but you definitely want to stay current. Okay.
So there's that.
Now, one more thing that we are going to be starting, we've actually test-driven this. We're going to be starting it, and I want to put this slide up here in a second to ask you all a question. We are starting live online training. So basically what that means is that we're going to be taking our classes and be able to deliver them using an online system, not GoToMeeting or something like that, but something a bit more interactive and easier for you to use. The software will be loaded up remotely. The class files will be loaded up remotely. You don't have to have anything more than a computer with internet access. And we're going to be test driving this here in the next month or two. We're going to be using different options for classes. So if that sounds like a good idea, if this sounds like something that you could use, we want to get a feel during our webinars. Do you think that live online training system would be beneficial to you? That way you wouldn't have to go out for a class. You could just sit at your office and take the classes.
It'll be just like coming to our classroom with a little bit of lag time, not much.
A little bit, that's right, with a little bit of lag time. It would be all live. So we're trying to get a good feel for this. This is something new that we're trying. We hope that it'll work, but we just want to get a good feel from people to see if they think that this is a good idea.
Pretty resounding answer there.
Okay, we'll give this a couple more seconds. I'm going to go ahead and close this right about now, and that's good to know. Go ahead and show it. It looks like most of you are saying, yes, you think this would be a great idea. Good to hear. I just want to kind of get a little bit of feedback and if you're everybody and find out, how you felt about it.
If you're outside the Colorado, Wyoming area, which is our service area for Autodesk products, we will be able to offer this to anyone basically anywhere.
Yeah, around the planet. So, of course, if you're in some place like Australia, you're going to have to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning. But anyway, yeah, the class times to be normal. Okay, so let's get on with what we're here to talk about today. Why use AutoCAD Map? And if you registered for the event, you saw the email, you saw the blurb that we put up there. A lot of functions in AutoCAD Map. Now, one of the things that I do want to kind of switch this a little bit up, a lot of people who are using GIS data, one of the things that I hear about when I go out on GIS conferences all the time around the U.S., and of course most of the people are using Esri software. And fortunately, the whole attitude of, oh, I'm a CAD person and GIS is junk and garbage and I'm never going to use it, and vice versa, I'm a GIS person and CAD is junk and I'm never going to use it, that whole attitude seems to be going away, and that's excellent. What I try to show all the time is that CAD can be an excellent companion to the GIS tools. It's a great companion to the products that you're using. So I'm never going to recommend that this is a substitute for the other tools. Those other tools have some great things inside of them that can do some great stuff, but this is an excellent companion to using some of those tools. Now, one other thing that I'm going to change up a little bit from what you read here is that for those of you who are using just plain AutoCAD, there's some great functionality in there that you could take a look at that you could use. So let's talk about what that functionality is. Whoops, and I accidentally put those two together. So first one, coordinate system conversion. You're working in a drawing and you're working in a coordinate system that you want to use, a state plane coordinate system, and you get a drawing in from a surveyor or an engineer or GIS files or something like that. It's in some other coordinate system, so it comes in shooting off into space somewhere. So AutoCAD Map will take care of this on the fly. Now, some people know that who've used AutoCAD Map. Oh, yeah, if I download a shape file, I can go ahead and bring in that in, and it'll convert to coordinate systems. But what a lot of people don't know is you can actually convert coordinate systems with AutoCAD drawings. I'm going to show you how to do that. And then right there, working with different file types, GIS file types, shape files, raster images, SDF files, etc. AutoCAD Map allows you to do that as well. Aerial images is hugely important. It's becoming more and more important on a daily basis. Even anybody who's doing any kind of site planning, they want to show their plan in context of real conditions of some type of aerial photograph. And what a lot of people don't know is that aerial photogrammetry is free. It's free out there through the USGS National Map. You can download aerial photographs and use it. Now, for those of you using 2014 and 2015, you might say, oh, that's okay. I've already got this GeoMap functionality, and I can use that. And in 2015, I've got the GeoMap functionality, and I can even print it. And that's all well and good, but that's only one imagery service. You have to be connected. You have to have a 360 account, be connected to the internet. What I'm going to show you is how you could download free images and plug those in very well. And if they're in a different coordinate system, I already talked about that.
And the 360 account's free.
And the 360 account is free. I love that word, free.
And
like free and beer and free beer.
And free from Autodesk. It's
amazing. Free from Autodesk. You're going to take advantage of. Theme mapping, and I'll show you quickly some of the advantages of that. Let's say I do download some of those cool shape files from City of Denver or CDOT or somebody else, and I bring them in and I can see parcels or I can see roads. That's great. But I'm going to show you how you can color code the roads based on certain requirements. In GIS, we always call this pretty color pictures, but anybody can do it. Civil engineers can do it. Land planners can do it. Anybody can do it using these tools.
And Eric, your question's a good one. We'll get to it shortly because it is an important one. So we'll cover that in a bit.
Okay. Another one that I get a lot is I've got a CAD file and I'm going to go ahead and submit this to a city or a county agency. How can I get my CAD file out into a GIS format? We can do that with AutoCAD map as well. Okay, another thing, I've got this really cool drawing with AutoCAD entities and with GIS entities and all these attributes and all this cool stuff. How can I give this drawing to somebody who doesn't have an AutoCAD map or even AutoCAD or AutoCAD LT and they've never heard of AutoCAD? Well, something that people don't know is you can actually export it to a DWF file similar to a PDF file. It's a free viewer, and you can embed all of your GIS data, all of your attributes, and all of that information, which is really cool. And then for everybody, drawing cleanup. Hopefully, nobody needs drawing cleanup. Everybody draws perfectly with no errors and no problems in their drawings. I'm giggling now. So you get a drawing in from somebody else because obviously you're not doing it, and these people have never heard of object snaps, or they've got duplicate objects or zero-length entities all over the place, and you're trying to clean up the drawing. How do we do that? Oops, I hate it when that happens. Color scheme. So I'm going to show you how to use drawing cleanup, and that's one of the really cool things about AutoCAD Map that people using plain AutoCAD don't know about. Okay, so what was the question real quick before I move on?
The question was, hopefully you can clarify connection to SDE. It is not clear if one can connect to 64-bit, and Esri 10.1 has changed their dialogues, so what AutoCAD asked is not the same as what Esri calls it in their dialogues.
Okay, quick answer, because I'm not going to get into the SDE portion of it that much, but we can connect to all sorts of data, like I was mentioning, the GIS data. Quick answer, yes, you can connect to SDE. The trick to connecting to SDE is that you need the 64-bit DLLs. So what you need to do is you need to get the 64-bit DLLs that Autodesk recommends, not the 32-bit. In order to get the 64-bit DLLs, you need to have a 64-bit platform of the Esri software. As a quick hint, yes, I can get you those. I can't post those online. They're not my DLLs. So if you do not have those DLL files, send an email. I'll give you the email address at the end of the webinar info, and I will let you know where you can get those, or I can send them to you. But you didn't hear that from me. Okay, so first, let's jump into the program and talk about some of the stuff I want to talk about here very quickly. So the couple of the things that I was talking about is changing of coordinate systems, not just for GIS, but for AutoCAD information. So I've got a nice blank drawing here. I want to start working on my project, and I've established the coordinate system inside of the program. Oops, hit the wrong button.
And not just GIS, but AutoCAD and Civil 3D.
And, well, I'm glad you said that.
There's some gotcha points in Civil 3, but
that's right.
It's there.
I'm glad you did say that, because I always forget this part. But let's say I want to start my project. I'm going to start designing. I do want to work in a known coordinate system. Maybe I've gotten some information from a surveyor and I've already started working with it. And then I get some other information, let's say parcels that are even in AutoCAD format, or maybe they're in a GIS format, but they're not in the same coordinate system. If you take a look down here, this is actually a lat long. If you look at my coordinates at the bottom of my screen down here, move my mouse around, I'm negative 123 by 44. What the heck is that? It's a lat long. Okay. Let's see. Okay, sorry, I keep looking at the questions. I'm going to let Stan work with Amy on the sound. Okay, so let's say that I am working with, I've got lat long. I've got either, like I said, GIS information or AutoCAD information, but I need to get this in. Let me tell you, when working with different coordinate systems, I see this happen a lot. You cannot just pick up the drawing, move it, rotate it, and scale it into place. It won't fit. It doesn't work. Trust me on this. You basically need to rubber sheet every vertex of every object that you see in your drawing. You need to rubber sheet them to get them into place. So move, rotate, scale, the transform command, it don't work. That's it. The end, amen. It don't work. So how do I rubber sheet everything? I'm going to have the program do it all for me. Now, as a quick aside, very quick aside, something that I just noticed today. So I made kind of a similar drawing, what you're going to see here momentarily when we get done. You'll notice that I'm in a nice state plane coordinate system. Yeah, 27 state plane coordinates. Look at my coordinates down at the bottom of the screen down here. You'll notice that. And I just noticed this, that 2015 has this. You can right-click your coordinates, and you can actually switch it to geographic coordinates, which is latitude and longitude. And I just never knew that. So just so you know, as long as you're in a known coordinate system. Now, you can do this without being in a known coordinate system, but it becomes rather irrelevant. But if you switch that, you can go right to from absolute to a known coordinate system by geographic. Okay, so just a little bit of cool information there for you. All right, so as you saw, I've got my lat long information. This is what it's supposed to look like. This is what it looks like. Like I said, folks, move, rotate, scale, that is not going to work. So let me, let's cancel that. Get into, close this, get into my nice clean drawing. It's very easy to assign a coordinate system inside of AutoCAD Map. I just use the library at the bottom of my screen and assign a coordinate system. The program comes pre-packaged with hundreds of coordinate systems inside this library, and if that isn't enough, I can actually program my own custom coordinate system. People are doing that for grid-to-ground conversion. So quick, just so you know you can do this, I can grab an existing AutoCAD drawing that's in one coordinate system, and through a little prestidigitation by attaching it in here and by telling the program, hey, please grab everything, that means a location all, grab everything out of that drawing, and I want to draw it in the current file. I'm going to execute my query, and when I zoom extents, I have now converted every AutoCAD entity from one coordinate system to another. Okay? 2 seconds. Program does it for me. Now, I'm glad Stan did mention something a little bit earlier. Stan said, okay, this will work with Civil 3D. Yes and no. It will work with Civil 3D or AutoCAD, but it will not, I got to stress this, will not work with Civil 3D objects, alignments, parcels, survey points. It won't recognize any of those objects, so you cannot do this with Civil 3D objects. There are other methods that you'd have to jump through, and we could train you on how to use those. Okay, so now I've taken that latitude and longitude drawing, and I've now converted it to, I'm going to detach that drawing so that I've now got a nice little clean file, and I've converted it to state plane coordinates. I can do this as well, as you'll see here momentarily, with GIS information along with this. Now the next thing, actually I am going to do this. I forgot what I had written down. So I am going to do this with GIS information. So I've downloaded, let's say, shape files or SDF files. So I've got a parcels file in here. I've got the streets that I've downloaded in here. So now I need to be able to bring that information in. Now normally we might go through a whole lot of rigmarole of going to data and attaching to the data, and that's all boring. I'm just going to grab that shape file or that SDF file, drag and drop it in, and there I go. I've now attached GIS data just by drag and drop right into my drawing. And the cool thing about this GIS data that you did not see in the background was that GIS data is not the same coordinate system that I'm working in. So the program does it for GIS data on the fly for me, as long as I know what coordinate system I want to work in. Now, when I get into talking about grid to ground, that's a whole separate conversation. But very quickly, to answer questions about grid to ground is, you can build a grid to ground coordinate system. I teach people how to do that. Lots of big organizations are already doing that. Groups like Metro Wastewater, Denver Water, city and county agencies are already doing grid to ground, and you can do it very quickly and easily. Don't worry about that. This will work.
And I want to put in a semi-shameless plug. Warren is actually one of the few people in the country, honestly, teaching this. And so even if you're not in our area, but your organization might need some training or desire some training on this, one, we will have classes in the remote class area very soon. Mm-hmm. And two, if you'd like Warren to come to your location, especially if it's in a warm and sunny island area,
yeah,
we'll be happy to come out to you.
Yeah, that's right. I'd be more than happy to come out to you. So any of you folks listening into this webinar right now who are in Jamaica, by all means, please bring me out there. Now, sometimes you may bring in one of these files and it shoots off into space. If I do a zoom extents right now inside my drawing, you saw I just brought in that streets, and I do a zoom extents, and everything disappears because my streets are over on one side of the screen. And so basically what happened was I just brought in the streets, and Warren, you said that I could bring this in and it would convert the coordinates for me. That's true. That's if the program actually knows what the coordinates are. And then you see here, oh no, they're unknown. So I look up my metadata, I call the source, I find out what it is, and they say, oh yeah, that was NAD27. Sorry about that, forgot to tell you, forgot to plug it in. It's easy. I could just grab this file, edit the coordinate systems. It said it was unknown, but I actually did find out that the coordinate system of the file coming in was that NAD27 state plane. And you notice I'm playing with Oregon files. That's what I train on. And I'm going to hit OK. And when I come back into my drawing, there are my streets. So as long as it's GIS data, I can translate the coordinate systems on the fly. It's really, really cool. Just change the coordinate systems. It's really, really easy, really cool to do. What about images? So I talked about using images. Now, a lot of people say, well, in AutoCAD, I could just use the XREF and attach my images. That's true. That is very true. As long as the image is the same coordinate systems which you're working in. All right? If it's not in the same coordinate system, then I'm rubber sheeting the heck out of the image, trying to bring it in. But in this particular case, if I connect to that image and I've got an aerial photograph that I want to connect to, guess what it's called? Aerial photograph that I want to connect to that I've downloaded from some resource. And I connect to it, and maybe I found out that it's in UTM or it's in lat long or some other state plane coordinate system. The program will convert it for me on the fly. Now, as I just showed you a moment ago, this one says unknown. The reason I'm showing this is that if it's the TIFF image, usually it'll let you know what the coordinate system is. But a lot of people are using SID images or the newer format of JPEG, the JPEG 2000 images. Very frequently, even if you download those from the USGS website, AutoCAD Map doesn't quite understand the coordinate system that's embedded into it. So once again, read your data, find out what coordinate system it was in, and then I can come in here and I can say, oh yeah, that coordinate system was a UTM or it was something else, and I can find it out of this list. Just for giggles, this one was, again, that NAD27. So I'm going to go ahead and select that, and I'm going to hit OK. And then I'm going to hit Add to Map. And I'm going to add that image into my map, and you will see here that the image comes in. Give it a second, right where it needs to be. But how on earth can I see all of my stuff because the image is on top? A really quick word of warning. You can't see it because of draw order, and you can't use regular AutoCAD draw order on these objects. It just doesn't play well. So what do? There's the image. There's all the rest of my data. I'm going to grab the image and drag it down to the bottom. If I've got AutoCAD objects, I want to grab this map base and move it up to the top. And now I can see all of my objects over top of the image. That's pretty easy. And if I don't want to see the image, I just check that box and I turn off the image so I can see what's going on. So very, very easy to bring in imagery and attach images and use them if they're in different coordinate systems. Images are free. You can find them all kinds of imagery out there. Like I said, use the National Map Viewer from USGS website to find good NAIP imagery, NAIP imagery.
And Warren, we have a few questions. You got time to take a couple here?
One or two, very quickly.
All right. Scott asks, I'd be curious to hear about transformations from Esri Grid to CAD and survey ground on modified state plane. Usually a scale factor around a base point is provided from the surveyor.
Right, and that gets back to what we were talking about earlier is when we're talking grid to ground, it's a very easy system to work around depending on how the grid to ground was affected inside the drawing. So that's that if you are doing it properly, you build yourself your own custom coordinate system using that scale factor by using this little create button that I'm showing you right up here. Use a little create button and build a custom coordinate system that takes that scale factor into consideration. The question that you're asking is way too wide-ranging depending on the data. So that's the fast way. There are other methods depending on how they affected the grid-to-ground transformation. So I'd need to know more about it. And actually, that may be a good topic for a future webinar. To be quite honest, I could talk about that for about an hour.
And Scott, you know, and to all of you, honestly, if any of you do have some more extensive questions and you have some work that needs to be done and you just want to get some questions answered, you know, feel free to give us a call and we can create a live go-to-meeting webinar or meeting just for you, we charge, we charge some for that. It's not terribly expensive, maybe 15 minutes to a half hour, and that's a good way to get some of these wider ranging questions answered.
Yeah.
With that, Jan asks, kind of in context here, what about when they created a custom coordinate system like her state does?
Yeah, state of Wyoming is actually a whole lot easier, but if you've got custom coordinate systems, all you need to do is import the PRJ file. You can bring in custom coordinate systems. If you have the definition of what they did, you can program that into AutoCAD map. So custom coordinate systems are not a big deal. Again, I do have to stress it all depends on how they're affecting that custom coordinate system. And when we come to grid and ground scaling, the tricky part with that is that too many people are using the AutoCAD scale command. So that's why I've got to take it offline, because if you use the AutoCAD scale command, then we have to spend an hour talking about how you're going to fix it.
And then the last one is, can the aerial image be a Mr. Sid?
Yep, and I'm glad that came up. So I brought this up here real quick. You can see all the different formats that we can support with aerial imagery. You'll see national Mr. Sid in there, PNG files, and virtually every form of JPEG and JPEG 2000, although there are new ones popping up almost on a daily basis. Okay, so I've got this information in here, and it's great. Now let's talk about, the next thing I want to talk about is the drawing cleanup tools. This is relevant for all of you people just using plain AutoCAD and AutoCAD LT. There are some great drawing cleanup tools. Now, what do I mean about drawing cleanup? Well, it's when you get into a drawing and you zoom in and you see nonsense like this. Like, these people have never heard of object snaps in their life. And I also see a lot of times where you'll get an entire parcel map in or something like that from Surveyor, and they'll have a circle in here, and they'll trim parcel lines to outside of the circle. Now, that's all well and good, but now I can't use these parcels inside of Civil 3D or the line work because they're incorrect. I can't export them to a GIS format because they're not closed. Basically, they're functionally useless, and I can't edit them or work with them. What other kinds of errors do we run into? So that's just basic drafting errors. What other kinds of errors do we run into? Well, right now, I can grab all of these lines, and I can turn them into a closed area, except for the problem of I've got crossing entities right here. I've got one big long entity, and these objects cross, so I have to break this polyline where it crosses all these other lot lines. Oh, that's easy, you say. Just explode it. No, I don't want to explode it, because I've got multiple vertices in here. Really, what I want is I want it to snap at that vertex and snap at that vertex. Okay, so I can do that. I can break crossing objects. There is another error that pops up very, very frequently. I've got a nice clean polyline here, right? 3 vertices, 1, 2, 3, you can count them. When I list this object, I should see 3 pieces of information in my list, and what the heck is going on? When I list this object, I should see 3 vertices. What's all this? Well, I've got a whole bunch of these vertices. Oh, wait a minute. All of these vertices are exactly the same X, Y, Z. What happened? Well, I'll tell you what happened. When somebody saw a polyline like this, and they wanted to clean up that polyline by getting rid of a vertex, they grabbed that vertex and they just moved it into another one. Let me turn off my ortho. They just snapped it into another one like that. And they want to get rid of this, and they snapped it into another one like that. That's not the way to do it, folks. Now I've got a bunch of zero-length objects, which are physically impossible inside of the geometric world, unless you're Stephen Hawking. So I've got to clean my data up. I've got to fix this. By the way, I'm going to undo that so I get my vertices.
Gosh, Warren, this is a black hole. Undo. Okay. These are some of the tools, so that, hey, this isn't just about if you're doing a map or parcels or whatever. This works if you're drawing a widget, or these tools are the ones we're talking about. Yeah, if you're drawing a widget or whatever, and you've overlaid lines, or you've got a gap in lines or whatever, these tools are great and well worth the price of map.
So when you're actually drawing, by the way, people often ask, well, I always do that. How do I get rid of that vertex then? Well, if you're using a later version of the software, all you got to do is hover over the vertex and choose Remove Vertex. As long as you get your tooltips turned on, you'll be able to see this, and it'll actually remove the vertex. And then last but not least, one of my favorites, and this happens all the time, I need to move this line by moving this vertex up here. Uh-oh. What the
Warren,
heck
the line's
is
still
that?
there.
The line's still there. Duplicate entities. Oh man, I hate that. Duplicate entities. And people go, oh, that never happens to me, or I keep my drawing clean, or how does that happen? That's another question. How does that happen? How do you get duplicate entities? It's because people use the copy command. What? I use the copy command all the time. I'm going to copy these objects. I'm going to grab them. I'm going to hit enter. Somebody distracts me. They ask me what kind of beer I like, or they say, we're going out tonight to watch a movie, and I'm not paying attention. And rather than hitting escape to get out of the command I was in, well, I just hit the space bar to get out of the command I was just in. So what did I just do? Well, I just used the copy command, and I've got a 0 displacement on those objects, which means I just copied them on top of themselves. All right, so 1 or 2 of these little errors, like the delete duplicates, we do have AutoCAD tools for, like overkill, but not all of them. So I'm going to go into my tools menu, I'm going to go into my drawing cleanup tools, and I'm going to tell the program, look, I need to grab all of these tack slots, all of my line work, and I want to clean them up. And what kind of cleanup do I want to do? I've got all of these different errors that I can clean up. You can find tools that may clean up 1 or 2 of them. Those of you who have Civil 3D, oh, you're used to this one, weed polylines, but I can do that inside of Math to clean up vertices. Break objects where they cross. Maybe I need to do that. Erase short objects. Nobody else has this. What if I've got a handful of line work inside my drawing that's like 0.01? It's not 0, but it's short objects. Delete duplicates. I can add that in. The 0 length objects, I can add that in. So if you find tools that may do 1 or 2 of these things, I've got a tool that'll do it all automatically. Those clustered nodes, those endpoints that come real close to each other, like 0.05, whoops, that 0.05 is an example. I can tell it how far I want those to be. And I can do this interactively or automatically, but if I tell the program to do it automatically, then voila, whoops, and I should have typed in a different number, I guess, for that one. Let me do that again very quickly. Next, snap clustered nodes of, let's say, a point. I keep doing that. I should type 0.1. Well, darn. Now I was goofing that up. But the rest of these guys in here, the 0 length objects, notice that's been taken care of. The delete duplicates. Come up here and move my vertex. The delete duplicates have been taken care of very quickly. And then the clustered nodes, I guess I could keep goofing around with that and come up with a good tolerance for fixing this one. Let's see what that distance is between those 2 points. There it is. It's about a 0.16. So let's say that any of my line work that is 0.3. There we go. And I hit finish, and it snaps those together. Now, I'm doing this very quickly, and I'm tweaking around with some of the numbers, and it's not like you're going to do this automatically. You know, this does require training in a conscious methodology of cleaning up your drawing, but I do want to show you what the program's capable of doing. It can do all of these things for all of your AutoCAD entities. Duplicates, the 0 length objects, where objects cross. It went ahead and snapped this polyline up here where the objects crossed. Okay, so now that I've got all of that information in here, how are we doing for time? Good. Now let's talk more about this GIS data that I brought in here. So I brought in some of the line work for the roads. I brought in some of these parcels. Now what does this do for me? I can just do an insert, or I can ask for AutoCAD objects. But here's what it really does for me, is that if I bring in GIS information, I've got all of this great attribute stuff that goes along with it. You know, like the land value or the flood zones. That's never important, right? The flood zones, the school districts, the fire districts, all of this kind of stuff. Well, what about the roads? What kind of information can I get with the roads? You go up to the CDOT website, you download some of those roads, or the City and County of Denver, you get some really great information, like the name of the road, the function class on there. How about the speed limit on there, whether it's paved, the shoulder, the pavement depth. You've got a lot of really, really good information, and none of this costs you any money. Isn't that great?
That's wonderful.
Isn't that great? Don't you wish beer wouldn't cost you any money? But none of this costs you any money. You just find it, spend a little bit of time, find it, drag it, drop it, get it inside your drawing. Okay, great, Warren, I've got it inside my drawing. What can I do with it? now I've got it in there and it's great. I want to look at it. But what kind of cool things can you do with it? Well, how about color code? Theme mapping. I want to color code everything. Now in AutoCAD, color coding means grabbing these objects, putting them on different layers, hatching them with different patterns, changing colors of layers, and that takes you a long time. With something like this, I'm going to turn off my parcels temporarily and just work with my roads. Whoops. Just work with the roads.
And while Warren's just working with the roads, we do have several questions coming in, and there's quite a few. So rather than break the kind of the flow of the webinar here any more than I'm doing right now, we will try and get to those right at the end.
Yep, we will try to get to the questions. So what I want to do very quickly is I want to theme my roads. I want to build a theme based on, I don't know, the speed limit of my roads. And I want to find out all the different speed limits that we've got in there, and I want to theme them, and let's say that I want to color code them from green, the slowest road, to red, the fastest road, and I want to build this by saying my slowest road is like that, my fastest road is going to be thick red lines. You'll be able to see the really fast roads in here quickly and easily. 2 seconds later, and I've now color-coded my GIS data. You can actually do this with AutoCAD objects. It's not as easy, but I've color-coded my GIS data based on a piece of information, and it was all free. Same kind of thing. I can do that same kind of thing with my parcels. All right? I can color-code my parcels. What kind of information might be important to you for your parcels? I don't know. Flood zones, fire districts. Look at all this great kind of stuff. I've got all these fire districts, and I want to color code my parcels based on fire districts. So let me use a really fun palette, like either an AutoCAD palette or some kind of, let's find a good color palette in here. That looks kind of fun. So let's find a neat little color palette that I want to color code. Just a couple of things, and now I've color coded these based on fire districts. And then I can turn right around and build another map and color code them based on flood zones or based on land value. And I can do this, and it takes me just a couple of seconds to do this with free data that I downloaded from one of these resources.
That's really cool.
Isn't that groovy?
That is.
I just love that kind of stuff. Okay, so now that I've got all of that, and I've got this stuff, and I've looked at the data, and now I've got all of my AutoCAD objects. So let me come into my nice clean drawing inside here, and I've got a nice clean drawing. I've cleaned it up. Now I want to grab all that other GIS data. I want to attach it, and I want to serve this up to somebody. So just like I showed you a moment ago, drag and drop the streets, come in here, grab my parcels, drag and drop the parcels. Looks good. Now I want to actually add my AutoCAD parcels to the GIS data so that I've got one map, or maybe I need to email it to somebody or give it to a city or a county agency or something like that. I can use a neat little tool to create what's called a topology, because I don't want to have to grab all of these and turn them into closed polylines. That's just going to take me way too long. So I've cleaned it up and created a topology, and now all I need to do is I'm going to go to my output ribbon, and I'm going to export my line work into the SDF file or the shape file that I've just created, in this case the SDF file. So I'm going to import it into that parcels file. I'm going to append the data into, I'm going to tell the program, please grab my parcels. There I go. It's in the parcels. I'm going to refresh the file. Where's my refresh? Where's my refresh? There it is. Refresh the file. And there I go. So I've just taken my AutoCAD information and pushed it into the GIS format in about 2 seconds. It doesn't have all of the cool attributes. I'm going to have to go through and add the attributes. But those attributes are, by the way, available to me. I'm going to pull up my thing, and I've got all those nulls, and I can go ahead and start filling in all the appropriate attributes so that I can serve up my data in a GIS format. Last but not least, before we get to the questions, so I've got all of my AutoCAD objects pushed in there. I've got the streets. I've got all this GIS data. Now I want to give it to somebody so that they could look at it, and they have never heard of AutoCAD or Map or Civil 3D or anything else. So how do I get this information?
What is this AutoCAD you speak of?
What is this stuff you speak of? And I'm not spending $5,000 just to be able to look at your data. And you go, great, I'm going to give it to you for free. I love it. I keep using that word, free. Love that word. So what do I want to do is using AutoCAD Map. Now, you all know, hopefully everybody knows, that I can print this drawing to a design web format or a DWF file or a PDF, either one. But if I've got AutoCAD Map, I can actually use an AutoCAD Map tool to say, hey, I want to export all of that cool GIS attribute information. You can only do this inside of AutoCAD Map. I want to export all of that cool GIS information, and then when I export this to a DWF, which I've already got in here, I can choose which page setup I want, etc. And I export it, and I send it out, and here's my example. It's a DWF. Notice the file size of that DWF, everybody, 221 kilobytes. My email address is bigger than that.
That's right.
All you got to do is email that to somebody, have them download the free viewer. This is one sample that I did earlier where I color-coded everything. I've got my AutoCAD line work in there. I've got all of this GIS line work in there. They've got the free viewer, or they can do this via the web using Autodesk 360 with their viewing tool. Again, free. Nobody's charging me anything. And they can print this, and this is great. Well, big deal. Anybody can do that. No, anybody can't do this. When I tell AutoCAD, tell Design Review to please use the selection tool, it now loaded up all to the right of the GIS attribute information. Woohoo! Isn't that cool? I didn't have to buy any kind of extra software to publish this to the internet. I didn't have to buy the Esri stuff or anything else in Autodesk world. This is all free. I just took all of this cool GIS data, pushed it out to a DWF. I know a lot of companies who are using this as like a lightweight GIS system. You can put this on a mobile device. Hey, a mobile device. And here's something cool. So here's something else cool. If you've got AutoCAD Map, you might remember how I told it what coordinate system I wanted to work in. Well, guess what, everybody? That coordinate system actually comes in to the DWF file. Look at the bottom of my screen, and you'll see that the program's registering the lat long of where this is. Okay, that's kind of cool. All right, well, let me really wow and amaze you. Guess what these buttons down here do? If I take this DWF file and put it in the mobile device and turn on my GPS, I can see where I am inside my DWF with all of these attributes. Come on. How cool is that?
I know my mind's reeling.
There you go. So look at all the cool stuff that you can do in Map. Now let's get to some of these questions that people have. Go ahead.
We have 5 or 6 questions. Probably take us the rest of the time, but anyway, we'll get through them here. Sean asks, can you import USGS elevation data and align to ortho imagery?
Quick answer, yes. You might have seen this a moment ago. If I do connected data and I use raster image or surface connection. Wait a minute. So I come in here, and the file type you will see right up at the top, digital elevation model. So the quick answer is yes, I can bring in a DEM file. And a lot of people say, well, I've got Civil 3D and I can bring in a DEM and build a surface. I don't want to build a surface. I just want to bring in the DEM file, and I want it to come in here and have it line up on top of my data. I can bring in a digital elevation model. I can bring it in and go into a 3D mode, and this is what's cool. This is something that AutoCAD Map will do that none of the other products will do, is it will actually drape my GIS data, roads, parcels, not AutoCAD objects, but my GIS data, including the aerial image. It'll actually drape it on top of the surface, which is really pretty cool. Next question.
Next question. There's a couple actually from Eric here. They're all one question, and they kind of go back to his original question about the SDE files. Going back to the second half of my original question, FDO asks for server name and instance name.
Yes.
Esri has instance. Not a lot of good resources on the web. What one would need to enter? In other words, FDO asks for 2 pieces of info. Esri provides 1.
Yeah, usually you'll get the server name. You can get the instance name is the open port that you will need to connect to. Sometimes that port is a number, like 5151 is the default number that you'll use for the open port. Sometimes the port will have a name. As an example, Denver Water, they've opened up a port and they've given it a name, and you'll need to get that information from whoever your SDE administrator is. Quick word of warning for those people who want to connect to their Esri data, that the people who are serving up the Esri data have to be using SDE with an open port. If they're doing what's called a direct connect, all of this kind of falls out the window. You can't connect using SDE because they're technically not using SDE.
Okay, Jan asks, does that work when they are at different elevations? Do I need to flatten first? And I don't remember where Jan's question came in. So.
Sorry, Jan. Yes. Everything
that was with the drawing cleanup.
Oh, the drawing cleanup. Oh, very good question. I'm glad you mentioned that, Jan. The drawing cleanup tools, and this is a really cool tool. A lot of people go, oh, I've got a lot of 3D objects, and maybe I need to flatten them or something else. No, you don't. Actually, I can take lines and turn them into polylines, and take 3D polylines and turn them into 2D polylines right here. So basically, this is your flatten command, and then it'll do the drawing cleanup for you. And next question.
All right, Joe asks, does object cleanup remove duplicate polylines that are identical but on different layers?
Yes. So, and this is actually a good thing and a bad thing.
Yes, it is.
All right, so when I'm doing drawing cleanup, I have to tell the program which layer or layers I want to work with. If I'm worried about duplicate entities on multiple layers, I can specify both layers at the same time. However, it will delete one of the objects. You have no control over which one it will delete. It will delete one of them, whichever one it feels like, so be careful when specifying multiple layers in here. My general rule is one layer at a time, one drawing cleanup action at a time. Sometimes it's actually a good thing to clean up duplicates off of multiple layers. Sometimes it's not. Quick case in point. What if I've got a utility map and I've got one line directly on top of another line, 2 different layers? Do I want to get rid of one? Not if one's a water line and one's a sanitary line that's 10 feet down. So be very careful with doing that.
Sometimes the lady's nice, and other times you really do want a tiger.
That's right.
So there you go, Joe. Michael asks, I have lots of high-resolution aerials files covering a 5-mile square area. Each file is 5,000 by 5,000 pixels and 98 megabytes. Woohoo! Can I consolidate all the files and make a super big aerial? I tried in Adobe Photoshop but ran out of memory.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem, is running out of memory. I'll tell you what, rather than worrying about, and yes, if you've got the raster tools, and I turned off my raster tools.
Oh,
if you've got raster design, which comes with the suites, you can use raster design to merge images together to turn
Michael,
into one.
you do have raster because you have some suites over there.
So, however, even if you are using raster design and you're trying to merge images, you might run out of RAM. So you've got to be very careful with doing that. However, here's a quick answer for you. You don't need to. If you connect to multiple images, so let's say that I just grab multiple images. When I go to connect to them, what I can do here is I can check this box right down at the bottom and say combine all of my images into one layer. So I'm not connecting to 5,000 different, making 5,000 different connections. It's going to combine them into one layer, one image over here. That still isn't going to help you out with things like the RAM and how much memory you're using. You're just really taxing your system, so buy lots of RAM.
And Paul does not have a question, but he says that in his world, unfortunately, free beer promotes alcohol abuse, and in his neck of the woods, spilling beer falls under the definition of alcohol abuse as well.
That's the truth. In the military, if you spilled a beer, you either had to get down on the ground and drink it up from once you spilled it, or you owed everybody a case of beer.
Well, and then back to Joe's more serious questions. How do I turn the bar across the bottom on and off in design review? I have never seen it that way before.
But
there's probably a tools or a settings button.
There might be a settings, or that's a really good question, and I don't know the answer to that. Oh wait, show hide, manage workspaces, show hide palette. Good question. It might be in here where it says show hide palettes, but I don't know the answer to that. I have not played around with, or it might be in here. Show canvas background, markup, something like that. That's a good question I don't know the answer to. So there's your answer, I don't know.
All right, and Charity asks, since you can bring in the dimension file, or the DEM file, excuse me, I was thinking architecture there. The DEM files, is it possible to run a view shed, or is that strictly for Esri software?
You mean watershed? View shed. I don't know what a view shed is. If you mean watershed analysis, no. You can do an elevation analysis, you can do a slope analysis, and you can do an aspect analysis. If you want to do something like a watershed analysis, then you would need something like Civil 3D and import that as a surface, and then you can do more analysis in there.
Charity said elevation.
Elevation analysis. Yes, you can. Yeah, the quick answer is yes, you can. I'd have to connect to a DEM to show it to you, but yes, you can. It's in that style, so where I was goofing around with the data and connecting to, or no, not connecting to data, but in Style Manager, if I had connected to a surface and I go to create a theme, I can do an elevation analysis theme.
All right, and we've got a couple quick questions left. And then we're going to have to close down and to respect your time and so forth. So Sean asks to link, goes back to the question about USGS elevation data. To link terrain geometry made from USGS elevation data to aerial, what workflow would you suggest?
To link the elevation information to aerial, just do what I just did in here. Just attach the data. Make sure that your aerial is on top inside this list of the aerial, and then if you want to see it in 3D, down at the bottom of your screen inside of AutoCAD Map, you want to click the 3D button. Going into 3D orbit is not going to work terribly well. You need to use this button to actually build that in there, and as soon as you do, the program will automatically overlay the aerial imagery on top of the digital elevation model.
And
I see Joe's question real quick.
Yep.
His answer is this is the desktop version. This is the last desktop version that Autodesk offered, which was Design Review 2013, not the 360 version. So maybe you're using the 360 version. I'm just not certain.
Yeah, and the 360 is not desktop.
Yes. And I do agree with one of the comments that this would make a great workshop. Everything that I've shown in here is in a class that I teach called CAD to GIS. It's a 3-day class. And one of the things that I'm going to be looking at doing is splitting up that 3-day class into 1-day increments and picking on a handful of topics that are important to people. And we're going to be delivering those on our online sessions so that you'll be able to use the software and the class files that we're going to give you, and you don't have to leave your office, and then just take the sessions that are very important to you. We're going to be breaking them up.
Those are multi-day classes. We'll start previewing probably in late January or February. We're going to run some 1-day classes just to make sure that they're comfortable and everything's working. We're trying to make sure this technology works very well so we deliver a good experience to you. So we're taking it a little slow here. Yeah. Last question. Edward asks, I have color themed a surface that was generated by raster. I can't print it with color theme. Why?
That's a good question. With the GIS information, what you see is what you get. So when you hit print, you should see popping out on your printer exactly what you see on your screen. If you're not getting that, then the thing to always try is when you go to print it, always first print to DWF6 ePlot to see what's going to come out, to make sure that that actually comes out looking good. If it doesn't come out on a printer the same way, then we're looking at a printer issue. Very quickly, though, and I'm glad he did mention this, is because a lot of people say, hey, I got this really pretty color map like you saw earlier, and I want to print it, but I want to use my plot style table or my pen settings. Quick answer, no. You cannot use a plot style table with GIS data. GIS data ignores it completely. So it's literally what you see is what you get. It will print out exactly as you see on the screen in color using true color. And on that note, we're going to have to start wrapping up because we're going over time, unfortunately.
We're going to bid you a fond adieu.
We're fond adieu. Hopefully you got some stuff out of this and see what the program's capable of doing. Like I said, everything that I showed you, we actually teach nice and slow, show you how to do it on data. We're going to be breaking it up and showing it to you. Let me get back into here, showing it to you later on. Online classes. Don't forget CAD-1, CAD book, CAD-Book is on Face1 and Twitter.
That's right. And I believe we have, check our training schedule, because we do have some of the live classes coming up in the next couple months. I'm not sure what the exact dates are, but
we're starting that up. Let us know what you think about that. If you do want classroom training, don't forget we can do online training, in-house training. Come out to your site. We're going to be doing the online training soon, as we just mentioned. Online mentoring, implementation services, and if you have any questions or additional comments about what you would like to see in future webinars, or any comments on our existing webinars, let me pull up the next slide, or any information about the content here today, please give us a call or send us an email at info@cad-1.com. Thank you all.
That was the longest adieu I've ever seen.
So thank you all very much for joining us today.
Goodbye now.